Ever gone up in a plane and felt your ears pop?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe taking a can of soda diving?
Okay, maybe not that last one.
Right. But you get the point. It's all about pressure, and today we're taking a deep dive into what happens when that pressure goes wrong, specifically with decompression illness.
That's right. We're talking about the risks associated with diving. You know, those moments when the human body, well, decides it doesn't like the pressure change.
And here's the thing, this isn't just for folks who spend their weekends in scuba gear. Understanding decompression illness, or DCI, can teach us a lot about how our bodies interact with pressure even in everyday life.
Exactly. Think of your body as like a finely tuned instrument designed to function within a specific range of pressure. When we go outside that range, like at high altitudes or underwater, things can get interesting and not always in a good way.
Okay, so before we go full Jacques Cousteau here, let's define DCI. What are we actually talking about when we say decompression illness?
So it's actually an umbrella term. DCI encompasses two main types of injuries: lung overexpansion injuries and decompression sickness, which most people know as the bends.
Ah, the bends.
Yeah.
It sounds so, I don't know, casual, like something you'd get from sleeping wrong on a plane,
hmm
but we know it's way more serious than that.
Yeah.
So what's happening inside a diver's body when they get the bends?
Imagine this. You shake up a can of soda, right?
Sure.
All that gas gets trapped inside. Now pop the can open. What happens?
Explosion.
Well, all that gas rushes out, forming bubbles.
Yeah.
Decompression sickness is kind of like that.
Yeah.
When a diver goes deep, their body absorbs more nitrogen from the air they breathe.
Okay.
Ascend too quickly, and that nitrogen forms bubbles in their bloodstream and tissues, just like that soda.
So basically it's like our bodies turn into a human can of soda underwater.
In a way, yeah.
That's both cool and terrifying at the same time.
It's a fascinating physiological response to pressure changes.
Yeah.
And those bubbles, depending on where they form, can cause a whole range of problems.
Okay, that's the bends in a nutshell. But you mentioned there's another type of DCI, lung overexpansion injuries. What's the story there?
Think of it like trying to inflate a balloon while holding your breath. The air has to go somewhere, and if it can't escape, it overexpands your lungs. In diving, this happens when a diver ascends while holding their breath. The air trapped in their lungs expands as the pressure decreases, and that can cause serious damage.
So basically holding your breath while diving is a huge no-no.
Huge.
Got it. You mentioned serious damage. What are we talking about here specifically?
Well, there are a few different types of lung overexpansion injuries, each with its own set of risks and symptoms. The most serious one, and the one divers dread the most, is an arterial gas embolism, or AGE.
Arterial gas embolism. That sounds ominous.
It is.
Okay.
An AGE occurs when air bubbles from the injured lung enter the bloodstream and block blood flow to vital organs, most critically, the brain. It's often compared to a stroke because of the similar symptoms: sudden dizziness, confusion, even paralysis.
Wow, it sounds like our bodies really don't like it when air bubbles go rogue in the bloodstream. Are there other types of lung overexpansion injuries we should be aware of?
Yes, there's mediastinal emphysema, where air gets trapped in the chest cavity, putting pressure on the heart and lungs. Then there's pneumothorax, where the lung actually collapses because air leaks into the space between the lung and the chest wall.
And then there's the one that sounds like it's straight out of a cartoon, subcutaneous emphysema.
Right. This is where air gets trapped under the skin, typically around the neck and collarbone.
So you're telling me with this one, you could actually sound like a bubble wrap toy.
Well, you could experience some voice changes and a crackling sensation under the skin. It's not as immediately life-threatening as an AGE, but it's still a sign that something's not right and requires medical attention.
Got it. So no matter where those air bubbles end up, it's bad news bears. We've talked about what causes these injuries, but how can you tell if someone might have DCI? It sounds like the symptoms could be all over the place.
You're right. DCI can be a bit of a chameleon. The symptoms can vary widely from mild to severe and often mimic other conditions, which makes diagnosis tricky.
So it's a real medical mystery then. What should divers and their buddies be on the lookout for?
Some common symptoms include joint pain, fatigue, dizziness, and skin rashes. But things can escalate quickly to more serious signs like paralysis, difficulty breathing, chest pain, even unconsciousness.
Okay, so basically, if you even suspect DCI, it's time to get professional help, ASAP. Don't mess around with those bubbles. So how do we avoid getting to that point in the first place? What are the biggest mistakes divers make that lead to DCI?
One of the most common mistakes, even among experienced divers, is simply running out of air. It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how often it happens.
Okay, I can see how that could happen. You're down there, mesmerized by a school of fish, and suddenly, panic time.
Exactly. When your air supply runs low, panic can set in. And that's when people hold their breath, ascend too quickly, and forget their training, significantly increasing the risk of lung overexpansion injuries.
So it all comes back to staying calm under pressure, literally. What about the bends, though? We talked about nitrogen bubbles forming. What causes that to happen?
Ascending too quickly is the main culprit. Remember that soda bottle analogy. When you ascend too fast, the nitrogen in your body doesn't have enough time to be released safely. It forms those bubbles, just like the gas in the soda.
Right. And those bubbles are bad news for our tissues and organs. So how do you prevent that?
That's where dive tables and dive computers come in. They're essential tools for any diver serious about safety.
Okay, break those down for us landlubbers. What exactly are dive tables and dive computers?
Think of dive tables as the original underwater GPS for divers. They're charts that provide guidelines on how long you can stay at a particular depth without needing to make decompression stops on the way up.
Decompression stops.
Exactly. These are planned stops at shallower depths during your ascent to allow your body to release nitrogen gradually and safely, preventing those pesky bubbles from forming.
So it's like taking the scenic route back to the surface instead of rushing up.
Precisely. And dive computers, they're like the fancy GPS units with all the bells and whistles. They track your depth, dive time, air consumption, and even factor in things like your previous dives to calculate your no decompression limits in real time.
No decompression limits. You're speaking my language, which is to say, I have no idea what that means.
Essentially, it's the maximum amount of time you can spend at a given depth without needing to make decompression stops on your ascent. Exceeding those limits significantly increases your risk of DCI.
So dive tables and dive computers are like having a guardian angel on your wrist, making sure you don't push those limits and end up with a case of the bends.
That's a great way to put it. They're crucial tools for planning and executing safe dives. But even with all the technology in the world, there's one factor that's equally important, if not more so.
And that is?
You got it. Air management. It's the golden rule of diving. Always, always keep a close eye on your air gauge, dive conservatively, and never dive beyond your training and comfort level.
It sounds like diving is as much about self-awareness and personal responsibility as it is about the gear and the technical stuff.
Absolutely. It's about respecting the underwater world and understanding that even with the best preparation, there are inherent risks.
It's that delicate dance between pushing your limits and knowing when to pull back. It's like that old saying, the ocean is a fickle mistress.
I think you might be mixing your metaphors there.
Yeah, maybe. But you get the point. Respect the water, know your limits, and never underestimate the power of those tiny nitrogen bubbles.
Well said. And that's true even for those who prefer to stay above the surface. Understanding how our bodies react to pressure changes is relevant to all of us.
That's right. Think about it this way. Every time you hop on a plane, hike up a mountain, or even just ride a really fast elevator, your body is experiencing changes in pressure.
Right.
Most of the time, we adjust without even realizing it. But knowing the potential risks and how to mitigate them can make all the difference.
Precisely. It's about expanding our awareness of those invisible forces that are constantly at play around us and within our own bodies.
So the next time you crack open a can of soda, take a moment to appreciate the fascinating interplay of pressure and gas exchange happening right there in your hand.
Yeah,
It's a mini deep dive into the science of the everyday.
absolutely. Knowledge is power, and understanding the principles of decompression illness, even in a broader context, empowers us to make safer, more informed choices in all aspects of our lives.
Well said. We've journeyed from the depths of the ocean to the heights of the atmosphere, all in the name of understanding this thing called pressure. We've explored the science, the risks, and the importance of respecting those invisible forces that shape our world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the wonders of knowledge.